Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com, and this video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Managing Automation with Ansible Automation Platform EX467 exam. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you have not subscribed, please do so by clicking the button. Also, a reminder that these are my practice sessions for the exam. I have the exam in just over a week, and I'm going through all of the posted objectives and either demonstrating them or talking about whatever concept the objective is after, in hopes that at the end of the video I'll do a self-assessment of how I did with the objectives. Hopefully I'll feel pretty confident for the exam because I don't have a lot of time, but if not, then I do still have a little over a week to brush up on some things and fill some knowledge gaps. That being said, these should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered training materials, nor should they be considered authoritative information. I do try to have the information accurate because I am learning the concepts right along with you, and I'm practicing for the exam, and I hope at this point I don't have incorrect information learned. But these should not be considered tutorials or like a source of preparation for others for the exam. I put these out on the internet in hopes of others that may be preparing for the exam. Some of the stuff I do might give you some ideas of how you can prepare yourself. So continuing on, I'm looking at the Manage Automation Controller Projects part of the objectives, and I think just as with some of the others, I'm probably going to try to hit all of these sub-objectives just with this one practice session versus doing multiple videos on it, because a lot of them are interrelated, and things such as launch jobs is basically click a button, so there's no sense in doing a whole video on that. But let's get into it. We're going to go into our controller, and I believe I've already set up test org and test teams and some test users for this as well. Yeah, so I already have some stuff set up. I could of course always do this with the default org, but sometimes I like making a little test org to where I'm doing something outside of just the defaults. So the first thing is creating a project. So to do this, I'm actually an administrator for the org. Actually, this is my super administrator. But to be able to create projects, you're going to need if you were another type of user, just for example, go into test user 1 here. If we were to add roles, you would need to have I'm fairly certain you would need to have the project admin role to be able to do that, which, I guess we could do a little test with this. I'll probably give this access to a team rather than a user if I was doing this in real life. So we'll give the test team organization role of project admin. I'm also going to add inventory admin, and the reason for this, in one of my other practice sessions, I struggled with some of the permissions, and I went back into some research because it's obviously the point of all this. If I struggle with something, I still have some time to brush up on it. And the combination of these two roles, the project admin and inventory admin, will then give you the ability to create job templates, which for whatever reason I was thinking job template admin would give that. What the job template admin does is give you the rights to make changes to existing job templates. So I thought that was interesting. And on another note, with the inventory, I was confused thinking update allows you to make changes to a static inventory, such as adding hosts. But really, what update does is if you have a dynamic inventory, and I think I suspected this during that video, it allows you to sync or update that dynamic inventory, but not with static inventory. You have to be an admin for that, or rather an admin on that inventory. So we'll save these, and let's log out and in and log back into test user 1 and see if those rights are granted. Oh, wait, I forgot. I use my monkey password. Yeah, and at this point I can add a project. I'm actually going to go back to the administrator because I am going to need to make a couple of credentials. I've since reset my my controller from my last practice session. So I'll need to, I think I'll still need, yeah, I need to make some credentials. So we'll do this real quick. I'm going to make a source control credential. We'll make it available to the test org. And you know, we can do a little test of permissions with this as well. So this time I'm going to use the method of uploading a file. I'm going to upload my SSH key. And if you're doing this and you're in GNOME, which you probably will be on the exam because you'll be using Red Hat Enterprise Linux, you would need to right click and show hidden files to be able to see the .ssh folder, which is typically where your private keys are going to be stored. And I'll go ahead and make a machine credential as well. It'll be the same thing. I'm just using that same SSH key. We'll set some privilege escalation information, sudo and root. I know some people say sudo, and I think that's probably how it was, you know, when sudo first came out, but I've always said sudo. All right, so we have our credentials. Let's go back to our test user and see if we can set up a project. Yeah, I can already tell an issue that's going to come up, but we'll deal with it as we see. So go to project and add. We're going to name this, we'll call it after its GitHub repo, project 1. And it's going to be a part of the test org. We would not be able to put it in any other org because this user only has rights within the test org 1. We're not going to set an execution environment at the project level. I have not had the opportunity to work with Ansible Automation Platform in a production environment. I've not been with a company that has purchased it, but just with my own training with these exams and messing around with it, I want to think that you are probably, I guess you could do execution environment at the project level, but I have a suspicion that you're probably going to dictate that maybe more at the job template level, but you know, I may be wrong with that. Just something I've observed with some of the trainings that I've done and a lot of the examples that I've worked with. It seems like most people are dictating that at the job template level. Now, source control type. So there's a couple of different things with this. The one that I would imagine you're probably going to use the most often is Git, but you are able to use Red Hat Insights, and this is something that I think is outside of the scope of the exam, but I know that within Red Hat Insights, you can basically get Insights to provide you a playbook to remediate things that it thinks are wrong, or if there are certain patches that you don't have. And that's probably, I'm actually curious, I'm going to click Red Hat Insights. Yeah, that'll be, and you feed it your credential for that, which is probably going to be your Red Hat account. Remote Archive, I have not used, but, oh, I see. So basically this is where you would have, what you would typically have is your folder that you have in Git source control. You would basically have a tar file that has all of your stuff in it, and it grabs it from there. Manual is an option that lets you basically have the project configured on your controller itself, which, I mean, ultimately all this stuff gets copied to your controller node, but you can dictate where this is going to be. You can tell it what within this AWX projects, what directory said playbook is in. But I think what you'll probably be using more often than not, because generally these kind of things you're going to want to have in source control, you'll be using Git. And so let me go into my GitLab server here in the lab and get the URL for project 1. We'll be using SSH for this. By default, it's probably going to grab main, but you can specify a particular branch. You can also specify allow branch override, so that way at the time of running one of your job templates, which will be running one of the playbooks in your directory, if you have allow branch override, then you can use a testing branch or whatever you would like to do, testing. And then once that has been, whatever changes have been merged into your main branch, then by default, it'll use your main branch. But this is going to be a problem because there's no source control credential found. Now, a way to solve this, there's a couple of things we can do. First, I need to go back to my admin account. So I'm going to need to grant some permissions. And since we're doing this based off of teams, I could add the organization role of credential admin. And they can do whatever, members of this team can do whatever that they want with the credentials. Or what I can do is specify for a particular credential, in this case, both the lab get and we're going to need the lab SSH credential. If we wanted, we could specify admin, we can specify read. We are going to specify use for this because the scenario that I'm kind of making here is that while this team can make its projects and make its templates, the administrators are setting all the credentials, and you're granting this team rights to just use them in their projects and such. So we'll grant that right to the team. And as a result, that's going to flow down to the users. So if I were to go, let's see, where could I? Definitely can probably see this at the org level, maybe. Definitely see, maybe it reminds me of a old Saturday Night Live joke when they were joking about Hillary Clinton running. I think it was, for what election was it? This was before 2016. It was some other election that she was like alluding she may or may not run. So the whole sketch was, I'm definitely going to run, maybe. And we all had a laugh at that. But anyway, yeah, it's not showing here. I think if I were to go to, not credential types, but credentials, and then take a look at lab get. There we go. And look at lab get's access. Then we see it's getting that from a team role, the use credential. So we'll go back, log back in as test user 1 and get back to making our project. So we'll add the project, call it project 1, and test org 1. We're using Git for source control. Yeah, I still had the URL in the clipboard. And now we can choose the lab get source control credential. We're not going to do allow branch override. We're not going to need that. I'm just working with the main branch anyway with this. And once you make the project, it's going to sync, which is basically pulling the project out of Git. And that's going to be stored, as a matter of fact, I think it's going to be like AWX project source maybe, and then there is a directory that will have, there it is, var lib AWX projects, and then it's going to live within that directory. And if you're curious, we can SSH in there and take a look. You can see one of the last things that I was working on here, actually. Oh yeah, I need to add this and push it up. Add playbook, get, I know I'm on the main branch, so I'm just pushing to origin. And now that we made that change, we have to do sync. Of course, if you wanted, I believe you can create a schedule for a new sync with this, if you wanted to sync periodically. Anyway, we wanted to verify the location of this. So we're SSHing into lab controller. Let's go to var lib AWX. Yep, projects. Oh, let me become root. Maybe I have to be root or I probably have to be the AWX user, but of course root should be able to get here anyway. Yeah, it's owned by AWX. So we'll go into projects, and there is our 8 inventory project, and there are the playbooks that were actually expected there to be one more. Oh no, what am I thinking? I need to look at the 8 project 1 project. There we go. And that's what I expected to see. So we see that the project is there on the controller. Let's take a look at the objectives. See, we've made projects, control user access to job templates. I talked about that a bit and what some of the access roles are, but we can dig into that a little bit more, and we'll work on we'll do create job template and do the survey stuff at the same time. All right, so we'll go into our templates. We can add a template. We are adding a job template. Notice this does not grant us the right to do a workflow. That is a different thing, but we can do just a regular job template. And we're going to call this one do or VM order. Now this is a little contrived thing that I've made. It is not anything you would actually do in real life, but it's just something to test the objectives. And I need an inventory. Yep. Oops. So let's make us an inventory. Let's call it test inv. I'm only going to add the one host to it. Of course, I can do this because I have the inventory admin role that's on the team that test user 1 is a part of. I'm just going to add one host to it because that's all that I need for my little playbook. Okay, there we go. One host inventory. So let's go back to job templates and let's start it again. So VM order is what we'll call this. So run job template. We'll use the test inventory. The project that it's using is project 1. I'm actually not going to specify the execution environment. I could if I wanted, but I think by default it's going to use an Automation Hub default execution environment, which is set to, I think, EE supported RHEL 8. We pick our playbook and it figures out the playbook here. And I guess survey tests. Yeah, that's what I wanted. The credentials are going to be the machine credentials that we made earlier. And that is it for what we need to do at this step. All right, so we've made the job template. Now it talks about doing a survey. Basically, a survey is questions that the end users or whoever is running the job template can answer that can be used to set values for variables that you will be using in your playbook. And I think the objective specifically calls out using variables from a survey and a Jinja template. So let me go to my command line here. We'll get out of the controller. And so in this little template that I've made, we have VMOS, VM RAM, VM proc, and VM disk. So we're going to make our survey. And this question in this survey, we are going to add, we're going to say select the OS. And the variable name is VMOS that we are doing this for. This is going to be a required variable. And there's all sorts of different little answer types. You can have just text line, text area, single select, multiple select, and then types of numbers. What the password is going to do is have it to where you see this instead of the actual plain text. But for this one, we'll do a single select multiple choice. So the first option is RHEL 9. And if you want, you can check this little checkbox that basically gives it a default status. So if the user doesn't do anything, you would have RHEL 9. And we'll add Windows Server, guess what, 2022. The most recent one of that, Server 2022, I think. Been out of the Microsoft game for a bit. I still touch Windows and such, but I'm not 100% up to date on what the newest version is. I think it's 2022. And that'll be it. So we'll just do the two choices there. And we can add another question, which we're going to do. This is how much RAM? And we'll make this one be an integer. And we'll set the minimum to be, or how much RAM in gigabytes. This is VM RAM. We'll do, they can request 2 up to 8. And the default answer is going to be 2. Of course, you don't have to give a default answer, but if you want, you can do that. We'll do a how many vCPUs. And just to test it out, we'll use a floating point, which this should allow them to do decimals. So we'll say minimum is 1, maximum 4, and we will not do a default answer for this. We will keep it as required, and this is VM CPU, I think. Then the last question will be how much storage, and include the unit. So we'll keep this as a text, even though you probably use an integer or something for it, but this is just for testing. Minimum length has to be at least 1 character, and we'll give a default answer of 1 terabyte, and they can have a maximum length of 1024 characters. I think I called this VM disk. Let me double check. Oh, it was VM proc when I did before, and then VM disk. Okay, so I need to edit this to be VM proc. Then we can change the order. I want them to, well, let's see. We'll select the OS, RAM. Yeah, we'll keep this particular order. One thing that you can easily forget to do is not click this button here. You do have to enable the survey. You don't have to click, save anywhere else after that, but you do have to click enable survey. Otherwise, it will not be done. All right, so I think I have everything to do this template. Now, a couple of things as far as launching templates. From the details screen, you can click launch, or you can click the little launch icon if you wish. So let's do the launch icon and let's see if it works the first time. Here's our survey. We have to select an OS. We'll do rel 9. Notice RAM in gigabytes. We have it has the default value of 2, and it looks like, let's ask for 500. See if it'll let us do that. Nope. Tells us that it has to be between 2 and 8. So we'll do, say, 4 vCPUs. Let's ask for something let's put some text here. 1. Same field must not be blank, which of course it isn't, but yeah, we'll do 1. Let's see if it further complains, and then we'll say 500 gigabytes, because I thought we set this to be a floating point thing. Okay, so it's saying survey has some errors, so let's click back. Odd. I expected that to complain, but let's see if we can give it a floating point number, 1.5. So it's going to have 1.5 vCPUs. Of course, this is just a little contrived thing. Gives you a chance to preview what's happening and see it's creating the variables here that have these values. And let's launch. So if this works the first time, often when I'm writing a playbook, I will have some type of gotcha syntax error that causes it to fail. Well, yeah, I figured out the error. I did my host pattern wrong in the playbook, but I was expecting a syntax error. So let's make a change. Survey test, I need to change that to internal.egslab.com. Get status. I know I don't necessarily have to do all of my get status steps. Usually I do another one after doing get add just to make 100% sure. Fix the host, and we'll push that. Let's go back to our template. Now I wonder, I think we can edit this. For some reason I was thinking I could have the project sync itself. I know you can do that with update revision on launch. Does this do what I want? That's something I'm going to need to test, because I thought it might be the update revision upon launch. I'm thinking to launch the job template and then sync the project. I can definitely see why you might not want that to happen. But anyway, so now we'll use the launch icon this time. We'll do rel 9. We'll stick with our 1.5 vCPUs, and we'll keep the defaults for the other 2. All right, now let's launch and see what happens. So what should happen is we will get the debug, and then, oh, I didn't, yep, that is not writable because I am not using privilege escalation. So let's fix this again. See, I knew this was going to be a thing. I encourage you on the actual exam to be much more careful about the playbooks that you write so you don't spend time like I'm doing right now and fixing stuff on the fly. And so because I'm going to do some good practices and only become for the task that needs it, we'll do that here. All right, rinse, repeat, get add, get commit, and get push origin. Go back to our projects, sync it again, and we'll run it again. Oh, I did not select an OS. All right, so rel 9. All right, now let's see what happens. All right, so we got the debug output that we wanted. Got a change for this. So now let's SSH into lab node 1. And here is our message of the day. Attention, VM needs to be created now. Get to clicking. And here's all of the details. So going back to our objectives, we have launched a job. We created the survey and we use the variables from a survey in a Jinja template. And that Jinja template, I guess I should show that. Let me come out of here. And if I were to cat templates, VM order, there's our Jinja template where I'm using those variables that were used in the survey. All right. Let's see how I'm looking at time. Yeah, this is pretty long, 35 minutes. I think I'll stop here and then I'll do another practice session where we look a little bit more at user access to job templates and hit the scheduling jobs and doing notifications. So I would say for these first few aspects, making projects, creating a job template, doing a survey, using the survey for a Jinja template, and launching the jobs, this is a pass. I feel pretty confident about being able to make projects for the exam. If you found the video useful, make sure you do click like, and I want to thank returning subscribers as always. And if you are watching and you haven't subscribed, do click that subscribe button and ring the bell when you do, so you can be aware of when new content is available. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.